Member for Banff-Kananaskis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's just so much to unpack there. It's a little, okay, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I'll just say that I am afraid of change. Absolutely. The change that I'm afraid of is a government that moves away from democracy towards authoritarianism. That's the change I'm afraid of. And that is the pattern of decision-making that we have seen from this government time and again. So I'm not afraid of change in processes. I'm afraid that the foundations of our democracy are being threatened by this government in many decisions that it has made over the last 3 years. And I think that that fear is well-founded, Mr. Speaker, and I think Albertans should be afraid of that too. I just want to clarify something. The member from Lac-Saint-Anne commented that he made a few comments about us being a young country and adapting our processes, and this is just because we're so new and we're learning as we go. Well, I'll just say this. Maybe the UCP government is learning as they go, Mr. Speaker, and that's why we end up debating several bills over and over and over again every single session, because they keep introducing pieces of legislation that aren't complete or aren't supported or don't make any sense once they start being implemented. Maybe they're learning as they go, Mr. Speaker, but for us, we actually try to do our homework before we come to the legislature floor, not during or after. The Constitution that governs court appointments is from the 1867 Constitution, not the 1982 Charter. So that actually is way older than 1982, as the member insinuated. The problem isn't that we're a young country. The problem is that we value democracy, and the UCP apparently do not value it in the same way. I'll get there. Just give me a couple minutes, okay? Yeah. This motion tries to amend the Constitution of Canada for the province to appoint judges to a superior court. This motion erodes judicial independence in our province, and this is something that we learn about in social studies, or at least we learn about in social studies maybe until the curriculum is amended to not learn about in social studies. But there are three branches of government, Mr. Speaker. The executive branch, which is the Premier and the Cabinet, they make policy and implement laws. The judicial branch interprets and applies laws, and the legislative branch, which is us, debate, amend, and pass laws. The legislative branch is elected, as we all know. It is critical. I love that how the members opposite keep interrupting me, Mr. Speaker. I'm trying to teach them a little something about the branches of government here. It is critical that the judicial branch be independent from the legislative and the executive branches. That is a foundation of democracy. You can't have political forces interfering in the judicial system, Mr. Speaker, because political forces change, but not only that, they have different motivations, right? They might have biases, they might have different intentions and objectives, and so you can't have that kind of interference. This independence is enshrined in how our democracy is set up, because there are times when politicians are biased and can't be trusted. This UCP government can't be trusted because it actually has a strong history of interfering with the rule of law. The largest corruption scandal in Alberta history, the Corrupt Care scandal, that's happening under this government's watch. The Ethics Commissioner found the Premier violated the Conflict of Interest Act. She's the only Premier in Alberta history to have been found to violate the Conflict of Interest Act. That's also kind of, illegal. The Justice Minister just last fall passed a bill to exempt himself and former Justice Ministers from Law Society sanctions, which quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, is wholly inappropriate, and we opposed that and debated that vehemently in the fall as well. You can't have the interference of the legislative branch in judicial processes. The Premier preemptively invoked the notwithstanding clause 4 times last fall without really any honest justification. And why do this preemptively? Why invoke the notwithstanding clause preemptively if the UCP believed their laws of forcing teachers back to work and targeting trans youth were constitutional? So They're not even giving the courts an opportunity to review those decisions, Mr. Speaker, because they invoke the notwithstanding clause when they get scared. We see a government who wants to make laws that disrespect the independence of the judicial branch, are likely in contravention of the existing Constitution, because when they are, they just invoke the notwithstanding clause, or now we have a motion proposing to amend the Constitution because they just don't really like it. It doesn't really fit with what they wanted to do, so I guess we should just change that too. So we'll just change the rules to serve partisan ideologies, not the people of Alberta, not equity or fairness in the treatment of the people of Alberta, but they're going to change the rules again because they've got this partisan ideology that is founded in this separatist idea that there's somehow all these biases everywhere that are just stopping conservative parties from being able to do their best work. Our best work, Mr. Speaker, is to represent the people of Alberta. Once you become an MLA, your job is to represent your constituents. I tell my constituents this all the time. It's not about furthering in this House, it's not about furthering political ideologies. It's about serving the people. I'm glad you think that's funny. So I find all of these violations of the interference between the judicial system and the executive branch, it's disturbing, Mr. Speaker. Albertans should be very concerned about how this motion and other government decisions undermine the critical foundations of our democracy. This objectiveness and fairness and lack of interference is critical. It's one of the reasons why I keep hammering at the Minister of Energy and Minerals and the interference in the functioning of the AER, because you can't have that interference. It's not how that works. So just this week, we see the government refusing to rule out a plan to gerrymander Alberta's electoral boundaries. This is a big conversation for us right now. And I want to be clear, Mr. Speaker, that doing anything that isn't accepting the majority report is the only democratic course of action here. The majority of report of those electoral boundaries is democracy in action. The Minister of Justice said today that the Legislative Assembly needs to be consulted on these boundaries and be allowed to do our jobs, to debate and have a conversation, etc. Well, I want to be clear, Mr. Speaker, we were already consulted, as were all Albertans. I, just like every other Albertan in my constituency, had a right to go sit in front of the Electoral Boundaries Commission and share my views about my ridings and the communities and their needs. I already was consulted. And also, it is exactly not our job to debate electoral boundaries. That is not what we do here. We debate laws before they're laws. We debate really bad government motions like this one, but we do not debate electoral boundaries. Politicians should not pick their voters. Voters should pick their politicians. And if this government chooses anything other than the current majority report from the Electoral Boundaries Commission, that could be challenged on constitutional grounds. So let's piece all of this together here, Mr. Speaker. If the Alberta government also wins a motion to appoint judges, and they also create a situation whereby they get to choose their voters and rig the judicial system to ensure those who oppose that don't have a voice. You see where I'm going here, Mr. Speaker? All of these things add up together to just further the accusations and allegations of corruption in this government and the reality that they're not serving the people of Alberta. This is incredibly corrupt how all of these things piece together. They piece together to make sure that Albertans don't trust the judicial system, don't trust democracy, and don't trust this government. And then the government will just pass more laws making people's votes count less and not be as meaningful because they don't believe in the consultation that the Electoral Boundaries Commission already went through. It's another step closer to authoritarianism, Mr. Speaker, and Albertans should be up in arms about this and how all of these things are connected. I find it very disturbing. The other thing that's really problematic here is that I don't really understand what problem is being solved. This is not the priority of Albertans. I'm not going door knocking in my riding and people are saying, you know what, my biggest worry is right now is that we're not appointing federal court judges. You do not hear it all the time. This is a separatist move. The Free Alberta strategy back in 2021 said that the government of Alberta should take over judicial appointments. What I find particularly interesting here is that the Free Alberta strategy is not a government body or an independent committee, it's a separatist organization. But the other thing is that I don't think that most Albertans understand that Albertans are involved in the selection of judges for the federal court. The Federal Judicial Advisory Committee is made up of several Albertans who are experienced and experts in this exact topic, and they create a list of approved candidates to take to the federal minister. The Free Alberta strategy just is neglecting to tell Albertans about that little piece of reality, that Albertan experts are already involved in selecting and recommending who judicial appointments should be for federal court. So why are we doing this right now? We're already involved. There's already a process in place. It just feels like the government that keeps saying they're not a separatist government, but is also just making moves to support separatists and separatist movements all the time. So I think that's really confusing. It's confusing for me, and I think it's confusing for Albertans. And eventually the people are going to see through that, Mr. Speaker, and recognize that actually a lot of people in the UCP government are separatists. And it's not where the majority of Albertans sit in their love of country and love of province. This is massive provincial overreach. Again, we have a UCP government that just refuses to stay in its lane. Oh my goodness. Could they just manage and govern the province of Alberta, Mr. Speaker? That would be amazing. I would love it if they would just focus on Alberta and Albertans. What about affordability? What about healthcare? What about education? What about better tourism management? None of those things really seem to be happening in a way that satisfies the people, but hey, let's spend a whole entire afternoon debating the appointment of federal judges. I still have yet to hear a reason from the members opposite of why we need this motion, why we need it now, and why this is important to the people of Alberta in a way that actually explains why the current system is not serving the people of Alberta. Albertans are already involved in selecting judges. You guys, everybody knows that's true in this room. So why are we here? The federal government is not appointing judges without the input of key representatives from the Alberta judicial system. But this government is more focused on being in opposition to the federal government than governing Alberta. They're not separatists, but everything they do is about moving towards building a case for separation. That's kind of separatist. This motion may pass here today, but nothing can come of it unless the House of Commons also passes a similar motion. So we're going to debate and pass a motion, and then we need the House of Commons to debate and pass a motion. This is just another wedge issue to pick a fight with the federal government. It's another way that this government is tainting our democratic process with their ideologies and really just trying to pick yet another fight with Ottawa and just fuel that fire of separatism even more, Mr. Speaker. It's so disappointing. Mostly it's disappointing because I feel like we could probably do better. I feel like we could do things to actually serve the people of Alberta in a more meaningful way than trying to interfere in a process that is already working. You know, when it comes to what Albertans actually want from the judicial system, Mr. Speaker, it's addressing the long wait times and access to the judicial system. And I haven't heard a single member opposite explain to me how this motion will address that problem. How will this motion help people access and get into the judicial system quicker? It won't. We have to wait for the federal government to debate and pass a motion, and then we have to wait to debate and amend the Constitution. This is not a rapid process here. I also thought, wasn't this one of the referendum questions? Yeah.